Hey all, welcome to Political Science 101, Introduction to American and Nevada Politics. I think it has a different title in the catalog, but that's really what it amounts to, right? Um, this is the online version of the course. Again, welcome. Spring of 2026. My name is Dr. Francis Joseph Carlton III. Dr. Francis Carlton, the shorter version. I am on the Charleston campus in the C building, C for Carlton, Suite 269, Office F for Francis. I'll just jump right in here because this is an introduction to the course, but also to the syllabus. As per the posted syllabus that you'll find on the home page of the Canvas version of this course, and I cannot emphasize that enough. I'll come back to that. It's best to access the material for this course on the home page, not on the syllabus tab, but on the home page. That's where everything is centralized. I mean, everything. So on that home page, you'll find a syllabus. I want to walk you through the syllabus, and then I'll make some broad observations about navigating this course on Canvas. I do have, as you can see, office hours Monday through Thursday, 12:30 to 2 p.m., and that's on Big Blue Button. All right, so send me an email prior to when you want an appointment, or even in real time. I'll check as often as I can when I'm in office hours, physically here. But it helps if you send me a note ahead of time saying, hey, I would like to meet with you on Big Blue Button at X and such a time on X and such a day. And I'll set it up and I'll send you an invitation. But the most, the best slots are going to be Monday through Thursday, 12:30 to 2. You can also contact me here on campus if you want to do that. That's cool. You can drop me an email at francis.carlton@csn.edu. That's a great way to reach me. I also have a telephone number. That's my office phone. I don't know if that's the best way to reach me, but it is a way to reach me. What are we doing in here? We're talking about American politics and Nevada politics. Purpose of the course, help you to better understand our institutions, our political culture, our history, public policy, how things work, the Constitution, how Nevada politics work, state and local politics apropos of Nevada, the Nevada Constitution, etc. There are also some, course objectives. It's all pretty boilerplate, honestly. I'm not going to bore you with that. Two texts here that you need. Both of them are free. Yay. The first one, the basic text, is American Government 4E, which is available online. You'll also find that on the home page under the module entitled something like Open Access Resource American Government 4E. So you can access that textbook there online. It's free. You access chapter by chapter. We start with chapter 1. And then also select chapters from a book called The Sagebrush State by my most esteemed colleague, R.I.P., out at UNLV back in the day. He passed away, I think, about a year or two ago. Michael Bowers. We're using the most recent edition. And actually for that, another colleague of mine out at UNLV, David Demore, sort of handled that, updating it after the death of Dr. Bowers. And so I guess it's now technically maybe co-authored, Bowers and Demore. But it's the best there is. So when, for example, we're talking about the founding of the great state of Nevada, there's 2 chapters from that book that I'll post within that appropriate module as PDF files. So you don't have to worry about that. Again, it's going to be right there on Canvas as free. There'll also be some additional readings I'll be posting on Canvas here and there for one reason or another. Maybe current events quizzes. We'll talk about that soon enough. That'll be articles that you should read in order to do well on the current events quizzes. I might post a juicy piece within a module that speaks to the topic of that module. Maybe in the module on the U.S. Constitution. Maybe there's a recent article about how it's playing out in the year 2026. I might include that. Make sure you read that. But the core, the online textbook, and then the PDF files, select chapters from the Sagebrush State. No cost to you. Exams and quizzes. All right, so we'll talk about exams first. That's the core of the course. 4 multiple choice examinations, about 50 or 60 questions each. Prior to each exam, you'll get some study guides to prepare for that exam. And it'll be at roughly 4-week intervals. Exam 1 in about a month from the beginning of the semester, and so on. Here's the good thing. So many good things to tell you today. The good thing is I drop your lowest exam score at the end of the semester. Not till the end of the semester, but at that point I drop your lowest exam score. That's 60% of your grade in this course are the exams. All right, that's the core of the course in terms of weight of grade. 60%. That means what? Well, I'm not actually counting all 4, but if I were, right, each one will be worth 15%. Since I'm only counting your 3 highest, it's each exam is worth 20% of your grade at the end of the semester. So focus on doing well on those. That's where you get most of your grade. It's done online. It is by definition open book, open note. You'll be given enough time, I think, to cross-reference maybe PowerPoint slides or the textbook or any notes that you've taken. Let's get radical. You'll have time to cross-reference on some of those questions. Some of them you'll probably know right off the bat, get them done quickly. Others you may need to cross-reference what you have at your disposal while you're taking the exam. It's all good. Okay. There's also going to be 5 current events quizzes. I've already posted one. Get on it. Do not miss that deadline, 23 January. The cumulative weight of those quizzes is 15% of your grade. So that counts for a significant chunk, right? 15%. Don't sleep on those quizzes. Each current events quiz, as with the first one that I've already posted, is based on 3 current events articles. Read those articles. Old school, you would print them off and have them with you when you take the quiz. These are designed to really help you improve your grade in this course if you put any effort into it. And I try to keep them as topical as possible. Typically, 2 of the articles will be on American politics and 1 of them will be on Nevada politics. Yeah, so don't sleep on those quizzes. And I do drop your lowest one at the end of the semester. Your lowest quiz score. All right. Discussion threads. Most weeks, but not all weeks, unless I get ambitious, I'll be posting a discussion thread for you guys. All right, I'll give you about a week from when I post it. For those discussion threads, I want 2 posts from each of you. 1 original post, your own stuff, your own take on the prompt. I'll give you a prompt. My prompts are typically long. Respond to that prompt in some fashion with your own thoughts and ideas. No use of AI for this particular part of the course, all right? This is an AI-free zone. Now, that being said, I know from experience some will still use it. It'll be pretty obvious typically. I'll give you a 0. And it's not really a big deal because I do drop your 3 lowest. All right, but if you do too many where you use AI and I detect it, which typically I do, as far as I know, you can do that 3 times. Okay, but for the others, you want to just do your own stuff. Okay, I want authenticity. I want your own voice. If it's too smooth, quite honestly, and too sort of antiseptic, and it lacks any personality at all, that's one of the flags, one of the many flags I use for that. Come on, man. Give me your real you. I'd rather, if you make a good faith effort on these and use your authentic voice, as messy as that may or may not be, that's going to get you all the points, man. That's really all I'm asking for. So there's no real benefit in making it all smooth and professional with AI, because that's actually going to get you typically 0 points. Whereas if you post one that's deeply imperfect, but it's actually you, that's all the points. I'm begging you, take the damn points. Take the damn points, people. Yeah. And what I'm looking for is your own original post. And then once others start to post, you respond to at least one of those other posts with your response to that. And not, oh, I agree with you. Yeah, it's not going to get done. It's got to be a good faith effort. Your own authentic voice. Okay? For that first original post of your own, I'm looking for about 2 meaty paragraphs. If you can cross-reference the PowerPoint slides for that module, because they are linked to modules that we're doing, or if you, God forbid, cross-reference the text. If you bring in an outside source, bonus, man. That's fantastic. That's ideal. That's really what I want. But I'll really take any sort of a serious good faith effort. I want to give you the points. What's that line from Jerry Maguire? Help me, help you. Make a good faith effort. Use your own voice and you'll get all the damn points. Okay? I'll do between 8 and 10 of these over the course of the semester. And then I'll drop your 3 lowest. That's 10% of your grade. Okay, 10%. So that gets us up to what? 60 plus 15 is 75, 85. We're up to 85. The final 15% is based on short writing assignments. 2 to 3 pages. I'll assign 2 of those. I'll give you a prompt. I'll provide you with any material that you might need to address that. You can always use our text. I kind of encourage you to do that. Radical concept. So 2 to 3 pages, pretty low key, but you should make a good faith effort. You can use AI to a limited degree. The ultimate words should be your own. And again, if it comes off as honestly too polished and too smooth and too professional, I'm going to be on high alert. And then tell me how you used AI. So use it to a limited extent to get ideas or ideas for organization or substance. But ultimately, I want your voice again. I don't know. I like the human voice, as imperfect as it might be. I like the human voice. AI's voice, I don't find very interesting. All right. Again, deeply antiseptic. Super uninteresting. So use it. You can use it to a limited extent and then explain to me at the bottom of the paper how you used it. And I want you to, each time you use a source in your short writing assignment, cite it shorthand in the text. And then also provide a more full bibliographic entry at the bottom for your sources. All right. I'll provide an example for you guys to give you a feel for that. That's worth the final 15% of your grade in this course. Okay? And I drop your lowest one of the 2. So, right? Think about your strategy for each of these categories, given that I'm dropping at least one of your lowest scores in each category, right? I'm dropping your lowest exam score. You could take the first 3 exams, do really well, and you don't need to take the 4th. Or you take all 4 and just, let the chips fall where they may. I drop your lowest one. If you do really well in your first 4 current events quizzes, you don't necessarily need to take the 5th one. Or you can take all 5 and let the chips fall where they may. Discussion threads, you can count on me dropping 3. So you don't have to do all of your discussion threads. Honestly, since there's so many of them, you might miss 1 or 2. Not a big deal. Don't email me about missing it. Don't ask me to reopen a discussion thread. Not going to happen, partly because I'm dropping your 3 lowest. It gives you room to miss some, and it's cool. And then the short writing assignment, right? I'm only assigning 2, and I drop your lowest 1. So if you do well on the first one, which most students do, I'm not a particularly harsh grader, but I do like to see a good faith effort, and I like to hear your voice. If you do well on the first one, you don't necessarily need to do the second one. Yeah. So if you front load a little bit of your work here, you'll have a lot less to do at the end of the semester. Pro tip. All right. Things you guys don't have to worry about because you're online: class presentations and an attendance policy. So good for you. I assign grades in a pretty straightforward fashion. You can look at my grading criteria here in terms of what counts as an A, 93 and above, on and on. All that boilerplate that may be important for some of you, so I don't mean to dismiss it, but it is boilerplate. It's on every syllabus here at CSN in terms of services available to you through the college. Many of these are very good services. I'm sure all of them are. They're there in the syllabus. I have my statement on AI. I certainly would encourage you to look at it. It's relatively boilerplate, although I add some of my own stuff at the bottom there, apropos of what I've already told you about using it for the short writing assignments and the discussion threads. All right. Navigating the course on Canvas. As I think I've already suggested, use the home page. Use the home page, use the home page, use the home page. Now, a lot of students only want to do the syllabus tab. That has advantages and it has a value because it shows you stuff coming up, assignments coming up, and due dates, and the drop boxes. But it doesn't provide you with the broader context of those assignments, and that can be a big problem. Seems like every semester, no matter what I say, I get at least some students on the first current events quiz are like, I see the quiz, but what's it based on? Chapter 1? And I'm like, no, it's not based on Chapter 1. It's based on the 3 current events articles that I posted on the homepage of Canvas. I feel like Tim Robinson here. Yeah, so that's why it's useful to access the material consistently through the homepage. You'll see a module, and it will say Current Events Quiz 1. And in that module, you will see the quiz itself, but also the articles below that. If you only do the syllabus tab, where you only see the quiz, it's divorced from the articles. It's hanging out there on its own. It's all lonely and shit. And it's not going to make sense to you. So I'm begging you to use the home page rather than the syllabus tab. The syllabus tab is, I guess, useful for showing you what's coming up and due dates. But then you need to dig a little deeper for the context. That's on the home page. Did I mention that? The home page. That's where I centralize all the material for the course. The discussion threads, the writing assignments, the current events quizzes, the examinations, everything, the syllabus, the readings, everything. It's right there, man, for ease of access and navigation. Begging you. All right. So with that out of the way, let's go through the course outline here, and then we'll, call it a day. The first module is going to be on the functions of government, any government. It might be India's government or Russia's government or North Korea's government or the U.S. government. Just what are the generic functions of any government in an organized, civilized society? talking fundamentals here, right? Big picture stuff. That's how we start out, by the way. A lot of big picture stuff at the beginning, wide angle lens, and then throughout the semester, that lens gets tighter and tighter. All right. Functions of government, and then we start to bore down a little bit, we narrow that lens a little bit, and talk about our particular form of government here in the United States, constitutional democracy. There are two basic choices in the world today, and for most of human history, it's only been one choice, therefore not really a choice: authoritarian forms of governance and democratic forms of governance. The choice of democratic forms of governance is a pretty recent phenomenon. Okay? Most of human history is autocracy, authoritarianism, ruled by a single powerful individual, very hierarchical, no fundamental rights and liberties, no constitution per se, just typically one guy running the show from above, going all the way back to, I suppose, Plato's philosopher king. Now look, autocracy, authoritarianism, centralized power, it can actually work as a form of government. It absolutely can. Most of human history is that. Okay. It is estimated that today about half the world's population lives under autocratic forms of governance. Some more autocratic, like Russia, murderous, Vladimir Putin, and then some are, definitely autocratic, but not as hardcore as, let's say, Russia's. You get that increasingly in Eastern Europe, sadly. Governments that coming out of the fall of the Berlin Wall in the late 80s and the end of the Soviet Empire, right? These fledgling democracies in countries like Belarus or Estonia or Moldova, or honestly, not part of the Soviet Empire per se, but under the sway of the Soviet Empire, Hungary, Poland, etc. They're all sort of moving, as they're flirting with democracy, are moving back towards autocracy. All right, so autocracy these days globally is on the front foot. Constitutional democracies are in some retreat all across the globe, including here in the United States, right? A growing desire. Here's the ironic thing: a growing desire by we the people in countries across the globe for more autocratic forms of governance. That's the weird irony of democracy. A people can choose to become less democratic democratically by expressing strong support for a strong man who centralizes power, which is right antithetical to constitutional democracy, which says, no, we should rule through institutions, not individuals. There should be a strong fidelity to the rule of law, limited government, a strong emphasis on fundamental rights and liberties for all, and a written constitution that constrains power. Okay, so obviously under threat here in the United States, but we're not alone. In fact, we're part of the entire global trend. So we'll talk about that. As you can see, that's a preview. We'll talk about that. Man, look, it's partly, I'll be blunt, it's partly about Donald Trump, who fashions himself as a strong man and has expressed strong admiration for autocratic leaders across the globe. But we were moving in this direction before Trump, and I think we'll still struggle with it after Trump leaves the stage. But Trump, I think, has certainly poured accelerant on the fire and has moved us in that direction. Look, we're still fundamentally a constitutional democracy, but we're a little shakier than we used to be, and that's happening across the globe. And then we'll talk about, as well, American political culture. Related to that, we fortunately have a pretty deep culture and tradition and history of democracy that makes us more able to resist a trend towards autocracy. See, that's been the problem in countries in Eastern Europe, countries like Hungary and Poland. They don't have that deeper history of democracy. They don't have strong democratic cultures rooted in history, so they've more easily drifted back towards autocracy, sadly. We have some advantages here and in other countries in Western Europe primarily, having that longer, deeper culture and tradition of democracy. And then we'll talk about demography. We'll talk about America's changing demographics and how that shapes our politics, whether that's changing age demographics. We're getting older. Lots of other countries are as well. Again, we're connected to the world, very much so. Whether it's our growing racial diversity, whether it's the issue of gender diversity or religious diversity. Talk about all that, how that shapes our politics. We'll talk about the founding of the American Republic, of course, the American Revolution, the creation of the U.S. Constitution. We'll talk about the founding of the great state of Nevada. We'll talk about America's evolving American federalism, right, where we divide power between national, state, and local bodies. And then it gets a little even more complex than that, right, because we also have native tribes that Chief Justice John Marshall, about 200 years ago, described as semi-sovereign, almost like a nation within a nation, but not exactly. It's complicated. And we have territories, right, like Puerto Rico, most obviously. Right, and where do they fit into federalism? In kind of an awkward way, right? Territories, by the way, that's part of our colonial past. When we were no longer a colony, became large and strong by the late 19th century, and decided to grab some of our own colonies. Why not? And that was the Spanish-American War, of course, where we acquired things like the Kingdom of Hawaii, the territory of Puerto Rico, Guantanamo Bay in Cuba, and a number of other possessions. The Philippines. Yeah, pretty interesting. The hunted has become the hunter. And this was a little awkward to talk about that, right? And we still have these territories, many of them. Not the Philippines, obviously, although we still have a lot of power over the Philippines. But, Puerto Rico, most obviously. And then we built Hawaii into the fabric of America, right, as a state. I think that was our 50th state. Or was it Alaska? I get that confused. We'll talk about state and local politics here in Nevada, of course. We'll talk about civil liberties, Bill of Rights stuff. That's great stuff to talk about, right? Things like free speech, the right to keep and bear arms, the right to due process of law, freedom from cruel and unusual punishments, all that good stuff. We'll talk about civil rights. Right? We start out as a nation not very good on civil rights, and I'm being generous when I say that. We start out in a terrible place. But over time, right, we've gotten a lot better through things like the Civil War, the abolition of slavery, granting women the right to vote, the Black Civil Rights Movement, the Chicano Civil Rights Movement, the various civil rights movements on behalf of the LGBTQ community, on and on. We've made tremendous strides, but always I say, right, American politics is a work in progress. Work to be done always. We'll talk about the politics of the U.S. Congress, that institution that we love to hate. Although these days we seem to hate all institutions of governance. It's become a little toxic. I don't know. It's good to be skeptical of power, but maybe we've crossed the line here sometimes. I don't know. We've lost trust in our institutions, haven't we? Including Congress, most obviously. We'll talk about the Nevada legislature. We'll talk about the politics of the American presidency. We'll talk about the politics of the federal bureaucracy, what Trump calls the deep state, which makes it sound more exciting than perhaps it really is. We'll talk about the politics of the Nevada executive branch. We'll talk about the politics of the U.S. Supreme Court and lower federal courts. A lot of action there these days. We'll talk about the politics of Nevada's courts. We'll talk about the politics of public opinion, right? A central consideration in any democracy, and even in autocracies. Even Vladimir Putin over in Russia has some concern, right, about public opinion. Because if an autocratic ruler becomes too unpopular, we're seeing that in Iran right now, if an autocratic ruler becomes too unpopular, they may lose their grip on power. Okay, but it's most important in a democracy, and rightly so. We'll talk about the politics of voting, increasingly contentious, somewhat sadly, the politics of voting and the politics of our elections. By the way, we run really good elections, and people are skeptical of that. That's a damn shame. I think a lot of that skepticism is based upon endless misinformation. We run really good elections here and have for decades. We'll talk about the politics of the media. It all gets rather contentious given the polarized times in which we are living, but we'll get through it. The politics of the media, the politics of our political parties. There's an institution that we really love to hate, but it turns out political parties are central to the possibility of democracy. You need at least two healthy, functioning parties to have a democracy. And we'll talk about the politics of interest groups. All right, I've talked for too long, of course. I apologize for that. It's too late to apologize. Again, welcome, and I am Francis Carlton. I'm the instructor for the course, and I will catch you on the flippity flip. Take care, all.